All right, we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. If you are here with us, do say hi, do say hello so that we can interact with you accordingly. Welcome to the Thomas Chen Show, where we feature experts, luminaries, and trailblazers across different industries and movement. And the topic for today is all about discovering and utilizing our strengths for success in our personal and professional lives. Well, as individuals, we are all different in one way or another, right? The way we think, the way we feel, and the way we behave. And according to a research by Gallup, people who use their strengths every day are 3 times more likely to report having an excellent quality of life. And I'm sure most, if not all of you, want an excellent quality of life, right? And that's why today we are going to find out how we can discover and use our strength. So who is our guest for today? Well, she is a Gallup certified strength coach, certified NLP practitioner, and professional certified coach accredited by ICF. And she has over 15 years of coaching and counseling experience. She provides counseling, coaching, and training for employees and managers of Fortune 500 companies and government organizations. She utilizes a strength-based approach to identify and work with the coaches so that they can utilize their strength and help them to align themselves to their personal and professional goal, as well as achieve the professional success that they are looking for. So let's give a very warm welcome to Kelly Khan.
Hey, hello everyone. Thank you so much, Thomas, for inviting me to be on this show. Hi, I hope you guys have your dinner. I'm sure it's almost 8:30, right? So
yeah, I just had mine, which is great. So now I have more food for thought as well. But thanks for coming on, Kelly. So perhaps to start off, introduce a bit about yourself. How has your journey been thus far? And yeah, your experience.
All right, good. Thank you for the good introduction, Thomas. Once again, I think for myself, I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach. I'm a life coach. So basically, I help people to reclaim their happiness and inner peace, right, by working on their strength. That's really just one of the tools that I do use, right, because a lot of people do have a lot of self-doubts, right, or feeling overwhelmed about life. So my job, my passion is to really help people to have happiness and the inner peace that they want. Right. So I think as I think about this topic, it's quite interesting for me because I grew up thinking that I don't have any talents. Okay, neither do I have any strengths in that sense, right? Jack of all trades, master of none. So I really yearn to be like others, I want to be like Tony Robbins. I think he's really one of the big guru out there, right? Where whenever he says something, people will listen and he is able to win people over, right? So when I was growing up, I do think that, okay, you know what, this is my vision. I want to be something like him. But I realized after a while, I can never be like that, right? No, I can never be that extent of Tony Robbins, for example. Okay, or perhaps if I keep trying, maybe I can get there. But how many years does it take? I don't know, 10 years, 20 years, an X amount of years, right? So that's the reason why I realized that instead of always trying to become a person I'm not, why not focus on the person that I am? Right, because I do believe that I have my strengths that other people may have or maybe may not have as well in a different kind of intensity. So it's really about appreciating who I am. And that's the reason why I'm also in this profession, helping people to discover their strength and see how it can really help them to reclaim their happiness and their inner peace.
Very, very nice. And I think that's the beautiful thing. Once you discover your strength, it creates that congruency with yourself and you will feel happy about it because you identify who you truly are. Yes, there are many amazing people out there which we also want to emulate. But at the end of the day, most importantly, we have to be ourselves. And I think, Kelly, you are amazing at helping people to discover themselves. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, before we go on into the main questions itself, if you are here with us, do say hi, do say hello so that we can interact with you accordingly. And if you have any questions along the way about discovering your strength, about personal and professional development, about life itself, do input into the chat so that we can address it accordingly and value it as much as we can. And if you enjoyed today's session, give it lots of thumbs up, share it out so that more people will be able to benefit from it. All right, so for the main question itself, the first main question, Kelly, what's your definition of strength and how can we discover them?
All right. Now, before we talk about strength, right, I would like to talk about this word called talent. Okay, so I think when we think about talent, we do think about, sports, people in the sports or the arts. All right, so in that sense, okay, we think that people are talented in that area. But in fact, talent is actually our natural way of doing. Okay, our natural way of being. All right, which means that a lot of us, all of us have talents. Okay, in fact, we are born in a way of being, how we go about doing things, right? So for example, some like to take baby steps, whereas some people like to take big risks. Okay, and another one I find very fascinated is that, sometimes when you actually go into elevators, okay, I'm not sure whether you have this experience in the lift, there are some people who are just able to talk to anyone up there. Okay, they're really able to just, say hi, and to some people, of course, it's very annoying, but that's their natural tendency. Okay, of course, I'm not like that. I don't think I can be like that if I want to, but I'm not naturally like that. But there are some people who are naturally doing that. Okay, or some people are a little bit more organized than the other. Okay, they write down a list of things to do and stick to it even during the weekends, right? So that is really our talent in that sense, okay, our natural way of doing things. But what happens really is that when we are able to build our talent, when able to invest in our talent, okay, when we're able to spend a lot of time and effort practicing, developing this talent of yours, it can actually become strength, right? And the definition of strength, according to Gallup, is really about, being able to consistently provide near perfect performance.
Very nice.
So instead of a being like talent, right, it is a doing. Okay, yeah, producing near perfect performance. So that is really the definition of strength. It's almost like I'm not sure whether Thomas, do you work out, gym? I think you do.
used to. I would.
Okay.
Yeah, but
so it's almost like the gym, the concept, right? When we are really able to, go to the gym, build our muscles, it becomes 6 packs, for example. Then it becomes really a strength of yours. So we kind of need to build on it. We need to invest in it, in our talents. Yeah.
So from what I hear, there are 2 parts to it. Firstly, discover your talent, and then from there, build on it. So it will become a strength. Am I right?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so it brings me to the question, how should we or how can we discover our talent? I mean, there are so many things that we can do, but how we know that we are talented in that?
Okay, very good question. Of course, one thing that a lot of people do is you can really do some strengths assessment. Okay, there's a lot of tons of online assessment out there. Of course, there's one by Gallup as well. Okay, so one thing is that you can actually do all this strengths assessment. Okay, on the other hand, if we do not do strengths assessment, we can really ask ourselves this question, right? Okay, what kind of activities are you naturally drawn to? Okay, there are some things that we are naturally drawn to. There are some things it's not. Okay, some activities energize us, but some activities bores us. Okay, like for example, for myself, right? I love talking to people. Okay, but I don't like to talk to people in one whole big group. That means I rather talk to you one-to-one. Okay, so in that sense, when I'm able to talk to you one-to-one, it kind of energizes me as compared to me talking to a whole big group of people, for example. Okay, of course, sometimes I do enjoy it actually, right? But yeah, so that's an example, right? Or you can ask yourself, what kind of activities do you seem to pick up more quickly? Right? Or what kind of activities, what things you're doing that really gives you most satisfaction? Okay, especially if you're really tired, but after you're able to do it, wow, you feel really, really good about that. Okay, and of course, the other question is that, there are times where you are actually doing this activity and you're doing so well until you ask yourself, hey, how do I manage to do that? I didn't know that I can do it, but I can really do it. Okay, so these are some questions you can really ask yourself, okay, to kind of figure out what your talents really are.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, I like to ask people this question as well. Sometimes people do not know their strength, and I think one of the indication is also to ask yourself this question, like for example, what is the peak experience in your life? Okay, when you're really at your peak, what are you found doing? Perhaps that gives you a little glimpse on what you are really good at or what you really enjoy doing. Or what could be some of these strengths that help you to overcome some of these obstacles in your life, right? So these are actually some questions that you're able to ask yourself.
That's very nice. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to discover your strength, right, there are many ways. So, one way is go through all those different profiling tests, or you can ask yourself all these self-awareness questions, or in fact, you can even work with a coach like Kelly to help you discover what your strength is, so that, and what your talent is, so that you can work on it to develop it even more, right? So that is and that's very important, because when we identify our strength, right, we can leverage on it, right? We can maximize it so that we can live a more quality life as well. Amazing. All right, so at this point in time, I would love to acknowledge some of you who are here. Yes, I'm closely looking at all of you coming in. So I want to say hi to Man, hi to Mingern, hi to Nelson, hi to Fong Chua, hi to Steve, hi to May, hi to Janet. Welcome everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are here, don't be shy. Say hi, say hello so that we can interact with you. And if you have any questions, do input into the chat, because we will certainly love to give as much value as we can. All right, so now moving on to the next question, Kelly. So how does our strength influence us as a whole? Like who we are, how we act, and what we do. So perhaps if my strength is on communication, does it mean that I'm someone who loves to communicate a lot? Or does it mean that I should look into communication-based jobs, because this is my strength itself? So what are your perspective about strength influencing our life itself?
Okay. So in a way, we are more drawn to do the things that we are better at. Okay, but that doesn't mean that therefore we should only look for jobs in that area, because ultimately, for example, strength is not like a tool for recruitment. Okay, it's more like a developmental tool. Okay, where we know about our strengths, and then the next question is how do we really tap on the strengths to enhance our well-being or enhance our life in that sense, right? So I give you an example. So for example, if someone is very empathetic, I tend to use this example because just sharing about my experience, right? For example, so for example, if a person is empathetic, okay, this is one of the top strength of this person. So you will be able to see how the person actually reacts to the person around them. Right, it does show in their behavior. Like for example, right, they can sense the emotions around the people. Again, sometimes it's very amazing, right? That you may not know the person's situation, but you can kind of have some intuition about what the person is really feeling, for example. Right, so that is how the person may react. Okay, and for another example, for example, if the person is really when this person have this strength called ideation, okay, it's always thinking about different ideas, okay, very fascinated by ideas, and what really, how can you really see such a person, okay, is that, you know, in terms of behavior, this person is always thinking about new projects, new ideas, okay, and this person is always also looking for some kind of connections between various items or various things the person is involved with, right? So these are some of the examples, okay, and yeah, when you really, this is examples of how really strengths influence you as a whole in terms of what we are doing, what we are acting or responding to the people around us.
Very nice, very nice. So these are really things that are additional bonus on top, which we can really utilize when we are doing our work, when we are living our personal life, because from there you utilize your strength, you gravitate towards it. So it feels natural for you. So work on your strength, develop on it. Amazing. So based on that itself, right, it kind of links to the part where our strengths, are they nurtured or natural? So let's say our talent, we will talk about talent and strength, is in the form of ideation. How can we like further develop it so that we can even be greater idea generator from there?
Yeah, very good question. So I think the first thing that we need to do is to really become aware of it. Okay, because I'm not sure whether people are even aware of it. And sometimes we may think that we are aware of it, but actually we may not. And that's the reason why a lot of times we there's a lot of blind spots, right? I think we are humans, we do have a lot of blind spots, and sometimes we're not sure what's really happening to our life, because it's really easy to think about 10 weaknesses rather than 10 strengths. And that's what I realized as I'm coaching people. So back to your question, is it natural? Is it nurtured? So according to what talent says, right? I mean, just not the definition of talent, it's something that's natural. So what needs to happen is that although it's something that's natural, we tend to do it naturally, but if you really want to make it a strength in that sense, where we gain near perfect performance in that sense, we kind of have to build on it, right? We have to do something about it, right? So that it can really become a strength of ours, right? So for example, just now you mentioned ideation, right? So the person is always thinking about new ideas. Okay, so for example, one way of how the person can really build on this tendency, perhaps is to really take time to read, take time to explore, take time to think. Okay, you can even talk to people, because as you know, other people's ideas and experience may be able to energize you and help you to form new ideas. All right. So, or even discussing your ideas with others, right? Because you may be a good thinker, but then if you just don't do anything about it, it just remains like that. So you want to continue to fuel this, right? So you can actually perhaps discuss your ideas with others. Okay, because you have so many things to share, right? The brainstorming session can be really exciting and productive, right? And even their feedback, the people's feedback may help you to even refine some of your thoughts, for example. Okay, so these are some ways, that we can do to really build on our strength, to maximize it. Yeah.
Very nice. So to extend on it, in terms of strength, like how does it work? Do we have multiple strengths, or is just one very strong talent and the rest are great but not considered as a talent itself? In your experience, how is it like?
Yeah, okay. So let me share with you according to Gallup, right? Because Gallup has this strengths assessment. They call it the Clifton assessment. So there are in a total 34 talents. Okay, 34 teams perhaps, 34 talents, and there are some that's really dominant. Okay, which means that, you know, when you have this dominant teams, you're more likely utilizing them almost every day. Okay, but there are some which is not so dominant. Perhaps you occasionally use them. All right. Of course, if you talk about the last few, right, there could be your really lesser strengths, which then some people may say that it could be really your weaknesses. All right, something that you're not prone to do. All right, and to some people, it may be really like your weaknesses. Yeah. And I think one thing important to take note is that, therefore, I think I heard of this thing in the past where someone were asking me, so does it mean that we don't take care or build our weaknesses, right? Because in the past, a lot of times, me too, right? I even have this misconception that, you know, does it mean that, therefore, right? Because I have a lot of weaknesses, right? So does it mean that I don't deal with it? Okay, because if I don't deal with it, it will forever become my weaknesses, isn't it? All right, I'm not sure whether you have this thought as well, Thomas. And what do we do with our weaknesses, right? So the thing is this: for weaknesses, we build on, we don't build on it, of course, okay, but we manage around it. Okay, we manage around it. Let me give you an example, right? Are you a dominant? Are you, which is the dominant hand, left hand or right hand, Thomas?
Right.
Right hand, me too. Okay. So if I ask you to write a sentence using your right hand, any sentence, okay, using your right hand, it's probably faster, isn't it? And your handwriting, I believe, is much nicer.
Yep.
Okay, than me getting you to use your non-dominant hand, which is your left hand, to write the same statement, because it's probably less nice, and it'll probably take longer time. Okay, so that's the thing, right? So the reason why we really want to build on strength is because we do have something that we are really natural in doing it. So by working on our strength, we are able to reach our goal faster, all right, rather than focusing on what we are not. Okay, but however, sometimes weaknesses do become your obstacles to success, right? That's the reason why we also need to manage around it. So for example, if some of us are really not organized, okay, of course we can say that, therefore we don't take any jobs that needs us to really be detailed or organized. Of course, we can do that, but it's unlikely because nowadays a lot of things that they're doing do need that kind of do need us to be a little bit detailed, right, and organized in that sense. So what do we do then? So that's the reason why we perhaps need to work around it. Okay, find things that will help us to be a little bit more organized, even though it's not your tendency, right? So it could be having an electronic calendar, it could be having a notebook, it could be having some things to remember things, I don't know, or even to have some color coded calendar. I think that helps for some of my clients as well, right? Yeah, the calendars are full of colors. It really helps them. So yeah, so these are some things that we can do to manage around it, all right? Manage around our weaknesses and to build on our strengths.
Yeah, very beautiful. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not caught that, what Kelly is saying that aside from building on our strength, right, we can also consider to work around our weaknesses. For example, some people, their weaknesses is that they are very disorganized. So come up with systems, come up with strategies to help them be organized very easily, having different color indication or putting things together in a place that is easily accessible, depending on what individual weaknesses are, work around it. And I think this is something that is very relatable because as humans, we are not perfect. While we have strength, we certainly have weaknesses. So it is important to also work on the weaknesses, work around them so that we can live our fullest self. And I think that is very well said by Candy itself. Right. So just to explore a little bit more, because we were talking a little bit about the concept of Gawa. So can you elaborate a bit more about how they classify all these different talents and how people will assess accordingly based on what they provide?
Right. Of course, they do. They did a lot of research, okay, based on a lot of employees, a lot of managers, to come up with this 34 teams, right? And of course, I also shall not say exactly how it goes, okay, but definitely, all these are based on scientific research. Okay, and it's not just what they came up with, right? Yeah, so I think that's very valuable for us to really know what really makes us tick. Okay, of course, in the assessment, there are a lot of questions that you need to fill up, and from there they will give you a report in that sense. So definitely, you are able to actually know your top strength in that sense.
Right, right. And yeah, I think like that's the beautiful thing about all these kind of profiling tests. Like they have all these questions, right? So that we can really ponder which one resonates with me. And then from there, that's how you identify through all these different questions itself. Because our strength, it will relate to many of these different questions. And from there, it's really a discovery process itself. And that's why many like companies and corporations, they are having such profiling tests because it will help their executive to know better about themselves, and then from there, right, they can perform better as well, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, from there, right, moving on to the next point is that now we have this profile, we know about strength, right? How can we leverage on it even more? I know we have touched about it a little bit more, but practical steps in terms of like our professional and personal life, right? How can we further leverage on it, right, so that we can achieve the success in terms of our career, relationship, wealth, or a holistic success as a whole?
Yeah. I think before I answer this question, I would like to share this, right? Once again, it's a very common misconception that people have in terms of like, okay, so let me give you a example, right? So I once coached this salesperson, okay, and of course, if you think about sales, right, what do we need? We need influencing skills, for example, or the communication skills, right?
Good looks.
Good looks. Maybe you are right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway,
Important. Yeah. So you need the package, right? Especially the influencing part of you, right? So that's where sometimes we ask ourselves, oh no, you know what? I do not have this communication skills. I mean, all of us will have that communication skills, right? But there are some people who are more natural in wooing people, in winning others over as compared to some. Okay, so that's where sometimes people are stressed, especially the people I'm coaching in this category, will be a little bit stressful because then they realize that, oh no, I don't have it. Does it mean that I cannot be a good salesperson? All right. So the answer to this question is that it is not. It's not. All right, because we don't have this influencing traits in that sense, right? But it doesn't mean that we cannot influence people because we can still make use of our other teams or talents, to achieve the same purpose. Okay, so for example, there's also some people are more talented in relationship building. Okay, where they're able to make deep connections with people. They tend to do more one-to-one rather than one in a group. Okay, so in that sense, maybe sales can really happen one-to-one, right? You may not have that winning others over kind of skill so called, but you are still able to build good relationships. So perhaps you can still be a good salesperson, but by leveraging on your relationship building traits. Yeah, so I think that's really one thing that I want to clarify, because I once have this misconception as well, right? So if you really talk about, how to continue to leverage, okay, on your strength. So I think one thing that we really can do is, for example, okay, write down, what you really do for a living. Okay, if you talk about career, maybe some okay, so for example, for my career, training, coaching, counseling, or of course admin as well, right? So a lot of different things. So likewise, if you are in a different industry, you write down exactly what you're doing, right, on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so that's the first step, right? And of course, second step is, how does your signature teams contribute? How does your talents or strengths contribute to this work? Okay, and of course, then the next question is that how might you use some of these talents that you have to help you tackle your biggest challenge, right? Because we talk about challenges. We do have a lot of challenges, especially in this pandemic, right? So there's a lot of things happening, so instead of always dwelling on something that we do not have, okay, or we are not, how about thinking, okay, how has this strength helped you in the past? And how can you continue to leverage on this strength of yours to help you to overcome, your greatest challenge right now, or helping you to reach your career goals? Okay, so sometimes it could be ideation, sometimes it could be a certain empathy, or sometimes it could really be your strategic thinking, for example, right? So that is perhaps some of the ways where you can leverage on your strength.
Very nice. I really love Kelly's perspective about strength itself. It is really when you discover your strength and where you are at now, how you use your strength. Because in every career, I would feel, or in fact in most career, the strength is able to play out accordingly. And she gave a very good example about sales itself. Sales, a lot of time we have the idea that the person must be very extroverted, must speak very well, in the charisma, all this. But if that's not our strength is perhaps more of a one-to-one, relationship building. That can be also an advantage when it comes to sales. It is really all about knowing our strength and adjusting it accordingly. And I think that's a very powerful concept, because with having that concept itself, no matter where we are at, we are able to find the advantage based on who we are. And it is really about controllables and uncontrollables. And we will always want to focus on what we can control. And that's our strength itself. We know how to adjust accordingly. Very well said. Very nice. So from there itself, right, what do you think, if because earlier on we did mention a quote, rather a research by Gallup, is that people who use on their strength regularly, right, they are more likely to achieve a better quality of life. So from your perspective, right, what are the benefits of using and maximizing our strength every day, aside from those very tangible benefits, like getting better job prospect, but quality of life, how does it comes in play?
Yeah, so they will really feel more, okay, firstly, they will feel more engaged in their jobs. So there's a whole piece of research on engagement, staff engagement, employee engagement, because we are actually working on something that we are good at doing, right? So in terms of positive psychology, they also call this a state of flow, right? Flow, where we are really into that zone where we are so engaged with what we are doing that we cannot, we kind of forget about things that's around us, right? So definitely when you're more engaged in your job, guess what, right? You are really looking forward to go to work. Okay, you have perhaps have more positive interactions with people. You are able to achieve more every day. And that also makes you a happier person in that sense. And then of course, when you're happier, that also helps you to increase your well-being in that sense. Okay, because we are really talking about having lots more positive, creative moments. Okay, so that's a whole lot of benefits actually when we are able to tap on our strengths. So I'm not sure whether some of us, or or you experience, or even myself perhaps in the past, that we don't really look forward to go to work because we are not doing what we like to do or what we are good at, right? So every day becomes a dread, right? So I think that is really one of the very important thing, okay, especially for companies or managers who are really really want to see self-engagement. Definitely strengths, to know your strength, to be maximizing your strength is one of the way to grow, definitely.
Very nice. Indeed, it will make us feel more motivated, feel more driven, because we know that is our natural inclination. That's what we are great at, and that's truly how we can enhance the quality of our life. Amazing. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, if you are here with us, do say hi, do say hello. We are learning so much already, although it's just a few minutes, and I'm really very excited for today's session. So at this point in time, I'd love to say hi to Daryl, hi to Ivan, hi to Patricia, hi to John. Yeah, welcome. If any of you have any questions, on strength, growth, personal development, whatsoever, put it into the chat so that we can address it accordingly. All right, so at this point in time, right, I see a question which maybe I feel that's a great time to raise it up. Does strength have weaknesses as well? So I think what the person means, just to further elaborate on it, sometimes communicators, right, keep talking, but that can become a form of weaknesses as well. Does it come into play, and how does we adjust it accordingly?
Yeah, very good question. Thank you for the question. So definitely, right, when we have a strength, there could be some blind spots to that as well, which we need to take note of. Okay, so for example, like just now I mentioned, when I say this, I'm not bragging. I'm not trying to put myself in a good light, but my strength, one of my strengths is empathy, right? But you guys, I mean, we perhaps know that sometimes when we have too much of an empathy, it's not good.
Yes.
Right? It perhaps makes us stress. It makes perhaps especially when we have no boundary, it doesn't help us in our quality of life as well. Okay, another example. Okay, one of the strengths that I have is positivity. Okay, and to me, there's always a solution in everything. Okay, you can call it positivity, you can call it other things, but to me, there's always a solution in everything. So sometimes, right, I do have to take note, right, because if I am too positive, I am neglecting people's feelings, right? Because sometimes I may need to acknowledge other people's emotion. Okay, or sometimes I may be thinking, how come this person, is not so positive? I thought there's a solution in anything, but how come this person is always thinking about problems after problems? Right. So I guess yes, as much as we know what our strengths are, we perhaps also need to think what could be our potential blind spots. All right. What could be some things that we need to take note of. Okay, so that it will not affect us, right, in our life, or if it will not impede the success, okay, or the career growth that we want.
Very nice. Yeah, indeed, it's like yin and yang. Sometimes too much of a good thing, right, may become bad at the same time. So aside from knowing our strength, we also need to know the potential blind spots. And I think one very good example is sometimes when we are too overly positive itself, we may miss out on other people's feeling, or we may be too optimistic that there can actually be other better path ahead as well. So I actually come across an article where they actually say pessimists, they have their strength because they are so well prepared. So I guess in everything, right, there's a pros and there's a cons, but at the end of the day, it boils back to self-awareness. By having that self-awareness, we will be able to really adjust and adapt accordingly, know our blind spots, and then from there get the results that we want.
Exactly.
So Kelly, perhaps, please go ahead.
No, because when you talk about pessimists, I suddenly thought of this, right? Because sometimes when you're too positive, you don't think of the risk. Whereas pessimists will think of the risk, which is good in that sense as well, right? Yeah, so I think like what you said, self-awareness is really the key to go. You need to know yourself. Okay, you need to know what makes you tick. You need to know perhaps your blind spots as well. Yeah, that's a very good point for me.
Very nice. So perhaps, Kelly, you can share some of your clients' stories, like after you discover their strength, right? How transformational they have been. Because I know you have worked with many clients, you have impacted many lives, but perhaps some memorable one, which you would feel that, wow, it's indeed like transformational, 180-degree shift.
Yeah. My my most impressionable, I think one that I really remembered is exactly the one I shared with you just now, right? Because of course in her life is that there's a lot of obstacles. Okay, I can't do this. I'm not a good talker. I cannot communicate. I'm not a speaker in that sense. And you want me to, right, achieve this amount of sales. Okay, you want me to really do this thing, which I don't think I'm able to do that, right? So by sharing with her about strengths, I think it's really a major change for her. Okay, because that's where she realized that, if you don't have this, it doesn't mean that you cannot be successful. Okay, I think the interesting thing is that she still loves to do this job. Okay, it's just that maybe she thinks that she's not good at it, right? So it was a major shift for her to realize that even though if I do not have the gift of the gap in that sense, like maybe some of these gurus out there, right, or the top salesperson, okay, it doesn't mean that I cannot do the job. So I think the first step that I help her to change is really about the thinking. Okay, it's really about the perspective, how leveraging on our strength is really so important, which I think is one of the major, it's the first thing we need to address. Okay, because if you don't address about this particular point, then that is where you'll always be thinking about your lack. You'll always be wondering how can I not become like the other person, like what my client used to think about. Okay, a lot of why can't I be like this? I tried already, but I just cannot. Okay, it's not that I didn't try. I really tried a lot of ways to just increase my skill set in terms of the communication. But the progress is slow, or I may not be really achieving what I really want to achieve in that sense. Right. So I think that story really encourages me, because I'm encouraged once again, because I also felt that this was my life, as what I was sharing with you the last time, right? That just now, that I used to always want to be like a certain person. Okay, then always wondering, hey, how come I'm not like that? So I think that mindset shift is so important for all of us, right? To have that shift. Yeah.
Very nice. Yep. So earlier on, you were mentioning about progress. Like, do you have a system where you help your clients, right, to see the progress they make, or like track the progress that they make? Because sometimes, like, you have different clients, they want to work on different things. Sometimes there are things like intangibles, happiness level. So how do you usually work with them, right, to know that they are actually becoming better and better?
Wow, that's a very good question. Yeah. Okay. I think it's really important to first establish what is the outcome that you want to achieve, right? So in the coaching sessions, in whatever sessions, even in meetings as well, it's always important to kind of understand or to figure out what is the outcome that the client wants to achieve. Okay, and when we talk about outcome, it's really very specific into something that's really measurable. Okay, so for example, the outcome could be, I really want to increase my well-being at work. I want to be happy at work. Is it specific? Actually, it's not. It's not specific at all, right? Because happiness to some people is really different. Happiness to you and to me is really different. I think what we really want to establish is that what does really happiness or well-being means to that person. Okay, and from there on, really coming out with a very specific, measurable goal in that sense, right? And of course, what I sometimes do is that, getting the client to write it down, okay, so that we don't forget about it, right? So journaling, writing it down always helps us, right? And as we go through the process, that's where later on we are able to go back to the goal again and check with the client, hey, how has this been for you, right? Have you do you think that you are achieving the goal that you set out to do, right? So in that sense, I think having a very specific goal is very important. I think commonly we learn about SMART goals, right? Okay, so it's almost the same as that. It's almost similar, having it to be specific and measurable.
And I think that is a very effective approach, because when we are very specific, when we go into a way that is measurable, then we can truly track yes, some results we want, right, they are intangible, but we can attach them to tangible levels, like, a happiness level or happiness index whatsoever. So from there, right, we can have a clear idea. Because the thing is, sometimes if we just base it on emotions, we just base it on feelings, we can't exactly know whether is it and just at that point in time or it has been a sustainable change itself. So I think by putting in all these measurable yardsticks, right, it can truly help us to see, right, whether we have transformed or not. And yes, very important, I do agree, we have to pen it down so that we will remember our before and the after itself. Like, do you also do things like visualization, because like I personally, I've worked with you before, like visualization, and what are your thoughts about it? Visualize who we want to be down the road, or visualize our past whatsoever. How do you think that can come into the picture as well?
I definitely like to use visualization a lot because I think it helps to anchor the mind on something that's positive. So what I typically ask people to do, or even I myself sometimes will do it, is really thinking about, for example, this question, right? What do you want to be? For example, what's your goal? Okay, so going back to earlier, right, the statement that we made earlier, like, if I want to increase my well-being at work, okay, it's super generic, right? So when you have achieved that well-being at work, how will life look like? All right, how will it be like in terms of what you will see yourself doing, what you will hear yourself saying, okay, and also in terms of how you're really feeling inside you. All right, so trying to get the client, for example, or even myself, all of us can do it on our own as well, right? Trying to visualize how it really works out for you. Okay, looking at yourself, your face, the smile on your face, or sometimes even what clothes will you be wearing? How's your interaction with the colleagues, for example? So when the client when you visualize, okay, any one of us, when we really visualize what we want to be, guess what? Okay, it really instills a lot of positive emotions. Okay, and of course, when there's a lot of positive emotions, according to positive psychology, it makes us happier. All right, it makes us, happier, of course, and of course, when we are happy, when there's a lot of positive emotions, it increases our quality of life, our well-being. Okay, so visualization definitely is one tool I love to use, not just for clients but myself as well, trying to really visualize how it's like. Okay, visualize the goal that you really want. Okay, and because the brain keeps repeating itself, right? Guess what? You are, like for example, some people may be really fearful about doing some things. Okay, but when we're able to visualize how it will look like for you to do the thing that you're fearful of, okay, we are actually trying to get the client to repeat the success again and again. And it does help the person to be a little bit less fearful when the actual thing comes. Okay, and that's the beauty of visualization, I would say. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. And yeah, I mean, like I've come across this saying that everything happened twice, right? First in the mind and next in the reality itself. And I also agree that when you visualize it, it influences your emotions, it influences your thinking, it influences your action. And that's why when we always think about something, I'm not sure any of you experience when we are like towards the extent of healthy obsession towards a goal, a very high chance that we can actually achieve it, because how we act is the way that allow us to achieve our goal. And I think visualization is able to help you to achieve that powerful effect. So this brings me to the next part, right? Because we talk about visualization, we talk about working towards a goal, and in fact using our strength to work towards that goal. So what are your thoughts about goal setting itself? Like, do you recommend people to have a long-term goal and then chop it down into like daily goals? Or how can we design it that in the way that is productive and effective?
Goals definitely, you see, of course, a lot of us have long-term goals in that sense, right? Long-term goals are perhaps goals that's within years. Okay. But the thing is this, right? Because we may not be able to achieve this long-term goal immediately. And that's the reason why a lot of us lose steam in that sense, right? So it is really important to have short-term goals as well in terms of what do I want to be or to do, right, in the next few months, for example. Okay, and in fact, sometimes goals can be daily as well. Okay, because when we have goals in that sense, it helps us in terms of achievement, right? like for example, if my goal, okay, some people of course don't like to call it goals lah. All right, because goals sounds very, what's the word? Quite startling, because we can never meet goals in that sense, right? Because we always talk about resolutions, but we are not able to meet up to it.
True.
Yeah. Okay. So in that sense, perhaps you can say that what do I want to do? What do I want to be? Right. And every day, perhaps today, maybe my goal in that sense, right, is to be able to read a chapter of the book, right? To help myself to gain this knowledge about this certain topic. And if I'm able to achieve that, guess what? I will have this sense of achievement. Okay, which is really important, right? Because sense of achievement, when we have a sense of achievement, it helps us in our well-being as well. So everything would therefore links back once again to well-being, because achievement is definitely one of the tenets for increasing your well-being, according to positive psychology once again. Right? So it's definitely important to have goals. I would say
Very
that.
nice. Yep. Indeed, it gives us that clarity also. It gives us that sense of achievement when we complete and we achieve that goals. Yep. So I see a comment right here, right, which talk about Pareto's principle. If I'm not wrong, it's the 20-80 rule, where 20% of the work leads to 80% of the results. And there's a comment that actually our strength may eventually overcome our weaknesses if we focus on the strength as well. And yeah, I think that's a very great point that we can explore as well, because everyone will have weaknesses, but when we, aside from working around our weaknesses, when we keep building on our strength, I'm sure even people like Tony Robbins, they have weaknesses as well, but we see them for the stronger self and who they are, right? Yeah. People usually know us for that commanding strength presence rather than just all the minor weaknesses. I think that is a right thing to look at. So what do you feel about strength when it comes to character building? When we look at people, when we interact with people, right? Do you feel that people tend to focus on the strength or on the weaknesses, or how so can we adjust accordingly? Because sometimes people may be afraid of showing their weaknesses, but I have a perspective that be open with our weaknesses because it makes us authentic, right? And especially if we are on the journey of overcoming our weaknesses, people will see us as someone who is strong, who is trying to become a better self. So what's your perspective about sharing our strength and weaknesses in the social context itself?
It is definitely very vulnerable, right? It's not easy to be who you are. I think Thomas, just now you mentioned this authentic. To some people, I think it's really a scary word, right? Because you are actually sharing about who you are not. Okay, so I do think that sometimes if we are not watchful, we may fall into this trap that we just want to always talk about the good things and present the best part about ourselves, but we don't talk about the weaknesses. So I think in my perspective, it's really important to be able to share. Of course, I think the word is not to share, where you tell people, hey, I'm so bad at this, I'm not good at this, right? But I guess the word is to really embrace. The word is to really embrace your weaknesses or something that you are not, and stop comparing yourself with others. All right, because like for example, another strength that some people have, okay, is humor. I talk about this because I have a lot of people that I know have this strength, humor. And actually, this is a very important strength, right? Because you are able to use it in the office, right? Especially when people are down, you are definitely able to use it. All right. And the last thing you want to do is that, and keep dwelling on the fact that, oh, I'm not as humorous as others. I can't be positive, right? So so going back to what I shared earlier, it's really about embracing who you really are and not always trying to be who you are not. I think once we really get that going, it will help to change perspective a lot more, such that if we really have those weaknesses, we are okay to share it, we are okay to proclaim it. We are not afraid to just be who we really are in front of people. And that we don't have to really present, the best part of ourselves.
To embrace our authentic self.
Yeah.
And it's a fact of life. Everyone will have strengths and weaknesses also, right? So I think embracing it, not only do people see us as someone who's more authentic, but we also accept us for who we are.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a very amazing, right? Ladies and gentlemen, if you are here, we are learning so much already. So for those of you who just join us, make sure to watch the replay. Today's session is really very enlightening, right? And if any of you have any questions, do input into the chat, right? Anything on strength, personal development, growth, do ask your questions so that we can value add as much as we can. And from there, we will all learn together. All right, so Kelly, moving on to the next part, right? We talk about, strength at work, strength in relationships, strength in a social setting. So do you feel that our strength itself, right, how can we apply it to different areas of our life? Because earlier on, our context is mostly on work, sales in terms of the communication. But can we adjust it accordingly such that even at home, or perhaps we are in a social setting, we are able to also leverage on our strength accordingly? And do you feel that when it comes to different setting, right, we have to have different strengths to adjust accordingly? What are your perspectives about different settings and different strengths?
So all of us don't have just one strength, right, in that sense. So we have many strengths in that sense. I hope we don't just realize that we just have that one, right? So definitely we have a team of strengths, and definitely we are able to use it in different settings. So I give you an example. So for example, I'm not sure whether those of you who are watching are parents. Okay, so some of us may be parents, and we are definitely able to use, for example, empathy on our kids. Okay, maybe you tend to be able to identify some of these emotions, of your child, for example. So that's where you can actually leverage on it, okay, to help you and help the relationship. Okay, so that is in a social setting. Of course, in a parent setting, like, when you have a child. But in social setting as well, I believe that you can still use the same, right? When you're talking to your friends, some of us are really one-to-one. We build deep relationships. But some of us build broad relationships. Okay, broad as in we are really able to talk to anyone, everyone, and that is okay. That is really okay. Okay, and of course, when we mentioned that when we are able to use our strength, the quality of life increases. We are really talking about not just work, right? We are talking also about your family life, your friendship, okay, and whatever relationship you have in that sense. So our overall well-being will increase if we are able to tap on the strength. So
Very nice.
Yeah, that's really the bottom line here.
Yeah, so the core concept, right, your strength itself, right, it can really be applied in different areas of your life, not just at work, but when your interaction with your family members, social setting, relationship building, you can also use your strength because it is something that is versatile. It's something that it's dynamic. You can apply it almost anywhere, right? Okay, so at this point in time, I would love to acknowledge some of you who are here. Thanks for dropping by. Hi, Pamela. Hi, Brenda. Hi, Vincent. Hi, Ian. Hi, Chin Yong. Hi, Jocelyn. Hope that all of you have been learning great stuff so far, because I know I have certainly been learning amazing stuff. All right, so earlier on, we talked a little bit about quality of life. So what is your idea about that quality of life? Is it something that we have to develop holistically? Is it something that we have to, have a balance? Or is it we can focus on one specific area and enjoy a quality of life as well? What are your perspective about quality of life as a whole?
Yeah. Well, quality of life to me really means that you're happy. Right? Quality of life may mean different things to different people, but it basically means, are you really satisfied in where you are at right now in terms of life? Are you really happy? All right. Are you okay? Because what happens is that sometimes we may be overwhelmed by thoughts, negative thoughts, for example, and that may really impede the quality of life. Yeah. Thomas, would you mind reminding me of your question again about quality of life?
Yeah, so in terms of quality of life, right, what are your perspective about it in general?
Yeah, correct. So I guess definitely you see that's the definition of quality of life, right? In terms of life satisfaction, life meaning. And to me, I really believe that we want to thrive and not just survive. Okay, so I think that has been something I am still very inclined to. That is to help people, and simply because I myself, right, there's a whole lot of time where you really find that you are just surviving right day to day. You're just trying to endure, the work, or just dragging your feet to work and to whatever, to whatever you have in life, right? So a lot of us may be just surviving, but I'm not sure how many of us are really thriving. So when you're really thriving, really means that you are finding great meaning in your life, you are satisfied with where you are. And that also means that you're using your strength to the fullest, you're engaging in a state of flow, right? And you're really, when you have all these things, that really helps you in terms of a satisfaction and quality of life. Okay, and that's the reason why to me, it's really about helping people to thrive, not just survive. I think it's so important because I myself have gone through the surviving state. It's terrible. It's really, really terrible to just survive. Yeah. So yeah, and yeah, that's my definition.
Yeah, very beautiful. Yeah, I always hear the saying that we may be alive, but we are not actually living, right? So I
Yeah.
think I love your yardstick about quality of life. Is at the end of the day, are you happy? Yes, of course, we are not saying that workaholics may not be happy. I mean, some people, they feel so happy at work, do go ahead. But we are asking, like, what truly makes you happy? That is the quality of life that we want to reach out to. Beautiful.
Yeah,
All right.
but you see, different people may have different yardsticks. Sorry to interrupt, but different
No,
people
no
may have
worries.
different yardsticks about happiness. Once again, right? Like what you said, maybe doing a certain work makes me happy, right? So it really depends. Once again, yeah.
Yep, very well said. All right, so I do see a question here. Wait, give me a moment while I put it up. So the question is, there is a term called greed in psychology. So can you relate the strength factors in terms of how we can work with our strength? So I'm not that quite sure what the meaning of strength factors mean. So perhaps you can dive a little bit into it based on your perspective about what strength factors and in terms of how we can work on our strength from there.
I am not quite sure what this person means, but when we talk about greed in positive psychology, right, it really means we have this courage and resolve, right? In a sense, it's almost like never give up, resilience, perseverance in that sense. Yeah. So if you talk about how to build on it, is that the question? I'm not very sure. Strength factors.
Yeah. So I think it's more like, can you relate with the strength factors in terms of how we can work on our strength? So in terms of our strength, if I get it right, is that what are the factors, right, which can help us to amplify on our strength? Maybe we can just work on this direction. What are the factors which can help us to amplify on our strength? Like perhaps someone with greed, right? Even with difficulties, even with challenges, they will still keep moving ahead. They will not sacrifice their strength. They will not give up, and they will keep developing on it. So are there any character traits or are there any factors which can help us to amplify our strength even more? Maybe things such as having a learning attitude, things such as having greed, or things such as having a good mentor, like different factors which can help us amplify our strength even more.
Yeah. There are some people, right, who is a bit more positive than the others, right? We call it optimism. And of course, in Gallup, it talks about positivity, definitely, right? So we can definitely make use of this even more, right? Because these people are people that tends to think about the positive side of everything, like what we talked about it before. So the truth is this, when we really focus on positivity, it does help us to see things in a different light. And of course, when we do that, we are definitely able to to enhance our grit or resilience for that matter. Okay, and just now when you talk about love of learning, actually there's also one of this the strength trait that talks about love of learning. And for people that really loves to learn, okay, they don't just learn from books, right? They also learn from people. Or even Facebook Live like this, I think it is really a good platform, which I think Thomas is really wonderful that we have this platform to share insights, right? So when you really have this love of learning, one thing I can really see is that perhaps is there ways that you can actually find out from people how they manage to overcome their obstacles. Okay, as you really learn from people, learn from books, learn from things, look at the world around you, right? Then you realize that maybe Okay, that's what these people have. Maybe I can do the same. Maybe I can follow. Maybe I can utilize some of this skill set as well, right? So that will definitely help us to think of life not in our own terms, right? Because sometimes you are perhaps just fixated on something. Our view is not too big, right? But when we are able to look at things from different perspectives, from different people, it definitely helps us once again in our life as well, in the quality of life.
Yep, yep. Totally agree. So yeah, there are indeed many ways, like the ways that Kelly just mentioned, having a positive attitude, having a learning spirit, which can amplify our strength even more, right? Because at the end of the day, strength, if we don't work on it, right, if we don't expand on it, right, it will also become not a strength eventually. So I think these are different factors that we, regardless of how good we are in a certain area, we still have to work on it with these different factors. Very amazing. All right, so thank you so much, Kelly. We have learned so much from you. I'm sure we can learn so much more from you. So if we want to connect with you, if we want to learn more from you, how can we do so?
Yep, of course. You can, I think Thomas, you will share the link, right? So just drop me a message. Yep. Just drop me a message on Instagram, Facebook. Email me. All right. And then we are able to have, some discovery session about your strength. Right. So if you do want to know more about your strength, how you can tap on it, right? Do just give me a buzz. And let's have a talk. Let's have a sharing session on that. Yeah.
Very awesome. So ladies and gentlemen, her social media platforms, the links, they are all in the post itself. And I will encourage all of you, for those of you who are here, go book a discovery session with her so that you can really identify, right, your strength and how she can value add you, because this is very important. By now, we have already established that when you discover on your strength, when you leverage on your strength, right, it can certainly help you to enhance your quality of life. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, hope that tonight's session has been of value add to all of you. Thank you for being here with us. Truly appreciate it. So catch all of you the next time round. So good night. Take care. Stay safe. See all of you around.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Bye-bye.